I'm back-ish. Well, I am back. I'm going to try and start making videos a lot more now. I've been really inspired for the last, like, 2 months to make videos on certain things, and I just haven't done it, and then I have time now where I can start doing it, and a lot of the inspiration is gone. However, the booktube aspect inspiration has come back, so that's great. So what I'm going to be doing today is wrap up of all of the books I have read since I last made a video. The last video I made was, I think, in October TBR or something like that. I don't know. But that was in October 2015, so that was about 2 years ago. And so the amount of books I have on this is kind of depressing. I was really sort of shocked when I was looking at Goodreads and looking at my shelf trying to think, what did I read? What have I read since then? And not much. The last TBR, I did say I was going to read Frostbite by Richelle Mead, and I actually did it. I finished it. I read Frostbite, and I read Shadow Kiss. I am currently reading the next book. I just started it. It's been a year since I stopped with the series, but so Frostbite was a good book. It, I don't really remember. I will link my Goodreads as well down below. I have, like, sort of reviews on those, and at the time I had intentions of making videos, but I didn't, so I don't really remember how I felt about a lot of these books. I do think I liked Frostbite, though. I feel like I did. And Shadow Kiss was also good. I don't really remember, but I'll link those reviews in the description. Then the next book I read was a book called The Firelight Girls. And I read that one last summer. It was like my summer read. It was literally a book I got from the library because it was pretty. It was like pink and stuff. Anyways, that book was what it was. It took a long time for me to read that one. But what happened was I brought it with me to work one day, and I had like half an hour plus where I didn't have anything to do but read, and so I read a lot of it, and so I couldn't stop. But it was very cliche. I wanted more to happen. I think it was just very bland. And then I read but I did get like really good author advice. Like, she has this section in the back of the book that was an interview with the author, and she talked about how she wrote and stuff like that. The one flaw I think that she had was that she even said is that she doesn't like to have bad things happen to her characters, and I think that that would have made all the difference. I think everything kind of just worked out the way you expected it to, and it wasn't really a fun ride getting there. But it was a fine book. Will I read any more of her books? Probably not. But, I mean, I wouldn't not recommend it if you were thinking about reading it. But I also wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, this is the book you have to read. Oh, one cool thing that did happen. Anyways, I was at work, and I was holding the book, and I was walking, and this lady passed me. She says, oh, I know her. I know the girl that wrote that book. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, cool. And I was like, well, it's great. Even though that was a lie. But I mean, it is great. It was a good book. It was a very pretty book. Good advice in the back. The author seems awesome. I'm sure that she's really cool. And I liked the setting. I did like this book. This is a book that I do remember reading. But I just feel like it could have been a lot better. The next book I read that same summer was Nevermore by Creagh, which I believe is pronounced Creagh. I don't know, but I feel like that seems right. So I'll give you that. It is a gorgeous book. I mean, oh my gosh. I have the whole series now. I'm currently reading the second one in this series as well. This is a good book. This is a good series. It was recommended to me by Becca Booknut. I'll link her channel down below. She's fantastic. I love her. I was actually watching her last night. That's why I got inspired to, like, oh my gosh, I have to film one of these again. But anyways, she recommended this, and she said it was like one of her favorite books ever. She actually recommended it to my mom. This was before I was into BookTube, and my mom watched BookTube. She watched Becca Booknut, and she bought this, and I was like, okay, so what are these videos that you watch? Where did you hear about this? And then she told me, and I looked at BookTube, and I found some BookTubers, and now here we are. What do I have to say about this book? It's a good book. I'm reading the second one now. But the only thing really I have to say about this book is that it did not need to be as long as it is. There is absolutely no reason. A lot of things I think could have been made. I don't know. It seemed like there was just a lot of filler in this book, and maybe, I don't know. I feel like I want to reread it but I never will. That'll never happen. I have too many damn books to read. But that's the one thing I have to say about it, is that it just felt like there was a lot of wasted time in the book, but I could be wrong. I don't know. And the only other thing that I remember, I'm reading the second one and I haven't heard it yet, probably because it's not autumn anymore, but I remember, and I tell this to everybody when I talk about this book, is the crisp autumn air. The crisp autumn air. Oh my gosh. She says it so many times. That's literally why I started underlining things in this. So I used to only underline quotes and things like that. And I've started underlining anything that stands out to me, or like, I don't know, just pretty much anything. But it was because I needed to keep track of how many flippin' times this lovely woman says crisp autumn air, or in some form of that. But it is a book that I recommend. Yeah, I would not recommend it. It's a goth and a cheerleader, and it's got ghosts, and it's got Edgar Allan Poe, and it's just great. Next book I read that same summer is still Starcrossed by Melinda Taub. Again, that's just how I'm going to pronounce it. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but this book is beautiful. This girl on the cover, I don't know who she is. She looks like the author, actually. And obviously it was the cover that drew me to this, because it's flippin' gorgeous. And it's got all the colors that I love, and it's great. Oh, good book. This is a good book. This is a book I recommend. I did have issues with it. Oh, I remember. Okay, so this is a sort of retelling, not really. It's kind of like what happened after Romeo and Juliet, and it's really good. Your main character is Rosalind, so that's really cool. It's a really good book. It kind of switches perspectives between a couple characters. I really liked it. I love Romeo and Juliet retellings. I love Romeo and Juliet ever since I was a kid. I mean, just because it's so dramatic and like, I don't know, I was into that kind of romance when I was younger, was like the really unhealthy kind of romance. But the issue I did have, and I do remember this, was that, so it's partially in Shakespearean or Edwardian, I don't really know. I do know, I think it's Edwardian, but Old English. But then it's not sometimes. And it slips in and out constantly, like noticeably. Like they'll be having a conversation in full-on Shakespearean dialect, and then all of a sudden they're not. But then they are again. I don't know, and that drove me nuts. And this is another one in the back, she talks about that. She says it's really hard to do or to speak the way that he did because he was a poet or something like that. And so basically she was aware of this, that this was happening, that it was slipping in and out. And personally, I feel like if you noticed that, you probably shouldn't do it at all in Edwardian, just because it did take away from the book because of that. Because I was like, I don't know, maybe it's because I have a hard time reading, but it really threw me off, and I didn't like that. That's the one thing I have to say about it that's like bad. Literally is just that it slipped in and out of Edwardian. But other than that, I really liked it. I liked the romance. I liked that this book is a book that kind of, stuff was constantly happening too. It did have a couple like plateau moments, but you knew that if it was plateauing, something was about to happen. This is a book I felt like could have been longer, but I'm totally happy with the fact that it wasn't, because I might not have ever finished it. It might have been while I was reading that book. I don't really know. It could have been after. But I finished this book marked by PC Cast and Kristen Cast. So I read this. I thought that I had finished this book when I was about 12 or younger than that. I don't really know. But I didn't. I didn't read the last like 20 pages. And so I just wanted another book to put on I wanted so badly to complete my Goodreads goal that year, because I was on a roll. I had read 3 books in one summer and I felt on top of the world. I only finished it, and like I said, I read it a long time ago, so I can't really give you a good review about the whole thing. I remember liking it when I was a kid, probably because it was so smutty. This book, and I noticed this even in just the last 20 pages, is that I feel like it's very dirty for the sake of being dirty. Like a lot of really like unnecessary things get thrown into it, like just thoughts that she has. I don't know, just to make it smutty, and I didn't feel like it was necessary. But one thing I will say, the books are gorgeous. I love the books. They're very pretty. I like the world, I think. Yeah, I don't know. That just bugged me, and I felt like the main character was possibly somewhat unlikable. But that's what I thought about Vampire Diary or Vampire Academy too, and I've kind of grown to like her a little bit more. The next book I read was not that summer. It was actually more recently. I want to say maybe in December, and that's Tiger Eyes by Judy Blume. And when I finished this book, I was just so like in awe. I came home and I filmed a video about it. I don't know if I still have that. If I do, I will potentially edit it and post it if you want to see that. But because this book was just great. And this book I read, I love the movie. I found the movie on Netflix and I used to watch it all the time, and then I found out that it was a book by Judy Blume. And Judy Blume actually, her and her son like made the movie. It's a thing. It's great. There are so many things that I loved about this book. My favorite thing about Judy Blume, though, is the way that she writes. It was different than anything I've ever read. She does not write prose, meaning that like the way she writes is very Ernest Hemingway-esque. It's very to the point. It's very what it is. And I felt it was the first experience reading a book after all the books I've read in the last 2 years. This was my first experience in my entire life where I saw everything, where I read every sentence and I understood exactly what it was saying, and I feel like I experienced the story. And that could also be because I've seen the movie, and the movie and the book are somewhat, you know, they're very similar because obviously Judy Blume assisted with the movie, but they are very different at the same time, and I love this. Anyways, I highly recommend that. Of all the books I've talked about today, this book, you need to read it. It'll take you 5 seconds. It took me a while, but you know, that's because I am the way I am. It's such a good book. I don't care what age you are. It's fantastic, and I think it will change you a little bit by the time you're done with it. I'll have to find that video because I'm curious to see now what I said in it. I just know that I was like totally awestruck when I finished this book. And it was a book, I've never experienced that either. It was a book when I was reading it, I did not want it to end. I could see the book getting like thinner and thinner and thinner, and just like rereading pages just so that I wouldn't be done with it yet. And I've never felt that before. When reading is difficult for you, you want to finish the book. At some point it becomes a chore. And this book, I never wanted it to end. I wanted the story to go on and on and on, and I love this. And if she ever makes a sequel, I'm so down to read it. Judy Blume, please. That is all the books that I have read since I last posted a video. How many books was that? 7. 7 books. 7 books. That's not bad, frankly. Frankly, I think that's more books than I've read in my entire life, honestly, other than children's books. If you look at my Goodreads, it says I've read 117 books, but half of those are like 70 pages. So, yeah. I have nothing to say. Okay. Bye.